The first time I realized witchcraft was real, I was standing barefoot on my kitchen tile at 2:17 a.m., holding a damp clump of my own hair that I did not cut, staring at a mason jar I had never seen before, sealed with black wax, sitting dead center on my counter like it paid rent. I live in eastern Ohio, outside a small town where the Walmart closes at 11 and people still wave from pickup trucks even if they do not know you. I am not a ghost hunter type. I work a normal job, I pay my bills, I roll my eyes at horror podcasts. If you asked me 2 months before all this, I would have said witchcraft was either cosplay or superstition with better marketing. I'm telling you that up front because I need you to understand. I tried very hard to explain this away, and it did not let me. It started with a house. Not a haunted mansion, not some Victorian with a tragic backstory, just a plain rental with beige walls and a garage that smelled like old paint. It was cheap because the landlord wanted someone in it quickly, and I was coming out of a breakup. That matters too. When you are cracked open emotionally, you will sign anything if it means you get to sleep without hearing someone else breathe beside you. The first week was fine. Then I noticed the smell. It hit me one night when I walked in after work. Burnt cinnamon mixed with something earthy and stale, like damp leaves that have been sitting in a bag too long. The heat was off, no candles, no cooking. The smell was strongest near the back door that led to the small patio. I opened the door and the air outside was cold and clean. When I closed it again, the smell stayed inside like it had been waiting for me. I did what every rational adult does. I blamed the vents. I bought filters. I sprayed too much Febreze. Then I had my first dream. I was standing in my living room, but the room looked slightly wrong, like a movie set built from memory. The corners were too dark. The ceiling fan was spinning even though I never turned it on. A woman sat on my couch with her back to me. She wore a coat that looked wet, heavy, like it had been dragged through rain. She did not move. She did not breathe. I said, "Hello?" and my voice came out small. She lifted one hand and pointed at my hallway, and that was when I woke up. My bedroom door was open. I sleep with it shut, always. I've done that since I was a kid, like it is a little psychological seatbelt. I got up, checked the latch, checked the hinges. Nothing was broken, nothing was forced. But the air in the hall was colder than the air in my room by a noticeable amount, like stepping into a refrigerated aisle at the grocery store. The next day, I told myself it was grief and stress. New house, new routine, brain doing brain things. I even laughed at myself. That lasted until the first time I found the bundle. It was in my front yard near the mailbox, tucked under the edge of the grass where it met the sidewalk, like somebody tried to hide it fast. Twine wrapped around a small pouch made of dark cloth. Something inside had weight. I do not know why I picked it up. Curiosity is a disease, and I have always been the kind of person who reads the warning label and still touches the hot stove. The pouch was damp. It smelled like iron and smoke. When I loosened the twine, a few things fell into my palm. Tiny bones like bird bones, a pinch of grey dust, and a short piece of blackened string with a knot in it. There was also something that made my stomach flip because my brain recognized it before my eyes did. A fingernail clipping. Mine. Not maybe mine. Mine. I bite my thumbnail in a specific, uneven way. I have done it since college. The clipping in my hand had that same jagged crescent shape, like someone had taken it straight out of my bathroom trash. My skin went hot and my mouth went dry. I stood there in the quiet afternoon, holding that little pouch, and for the first time I thought someone has been inside my house. I bagged it, took photos, and called my landlord. He came by with a bored look and a tool belt like this was going to be a leaky faucet. He checked the doors, shrugged at the windows, told me to get a camera if I was worried. When I showed him the pouch, his eyes did something weird. Not fear exactly, more like recognition that he did not want to admit. He said, "Probably kids messing around." Then he added too quickly, "Just throw it out." I asked if the previous tenant had trouble. He hesitated, and in that hesitation I heard the truth. He said, "It was an older woman kept to herself. Folks around here talk, you know how it is." I asked what kind of talk. He rubbed his jaw, looking anywhere but at me, and said, "Just small town stuff." When he left, I put new locks on the doors. I set up a cheap camera facing the porch. I tried to move on. That night, something knocked on my back door. Not a normal knock, not fist on wood. It was slower, softer, like fingernails tapping from the other side. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps again. I watched the door handle without blinking, waiting for it to twist, waiting for a shadow to slide under the crack. It stopped. I stayed frozen for another minute, then forced myself to walk over and look out the peephole. No one. The porch light was on. The patio was empty. The camera, when I checked it, showed nothing but static for exactly 1 minute during the time I heard the tapping. 1 minute of grey snow. Then it returned to normal like it had never glitched. A week passed. 2. The smell came and went. The dreams got worse. In one dream, I was standing in my kitchen and the sink was running dark water. Not black like ink, more like muddy river water. It had little bits of leaves in it and something that looked like hair. I turned the faucet off and the water kept pouring. I reached to close the drain and my hand slipped and I felt something cold brush my fingers from inside the pipe, like a hand reaching up. I woke up to the sound of water. My kitchen faucet was running. I had turned it off before bed. I checked the handle, the valves, everything. It was off. The water was still running as if something was pushing it from the other side. I shut the main line under the sink. It finally stopped. The silence afterward felt thick, like the house was listening to my reaction. That morning, I called a plumber. He found no issue, no leak, no pressure problem. He did, however, find something lodged behind the trap. He pulled it out with a gloved hand and dropped it in my sink, a wad of hair bound tightly with red thread. I stared at it until my eyes burned. The plumber glanced at my face, then at the hair, then back at me, and gave me a look that said, "I am not getting involved in whatever this is." He backed away like the hair might jump. I asked, "Could that cause the faucet to run?" He swallowed and said, "No." He charged me for the visit anyway. Respectfully, I hated him for that. That was when I started noticing small things that felt staged, like someone was arranging my fear. A dead crow on the edge of my driveway, placed neatly, not mangled. A line of salt across my back step that I did not put there. A smudge of something dark on my doorknob, like grease mixed with ash. And once, on a Tuesday, my front porch camera caught a woman walking past my yard at exactly 3:11 a.m. She never looked at the camera. She never looked at the house. She just walked with slow purpose, wearing a long coat and a scarf. Her face was half hidden, but her head turned slightly as she passed, and I swear to you, the streetlight flickered at the exact moment her eyes should have been visible. I tried to report it. The police officer I spoke to was polite in that way. People are polite when they have already decided you are dramatic. He told me to keep the cameras on and call again if there was an actual break-in. I wanted to tell him that the actual break-in part had already happened, because how else do my nail clippings end up in a pouch in my yard? But I knew how that would sound, so I did the next logical thing. I asked around. There is a diner in town where everyone knows everyone, and the coffee tastes like it has been reheated since 2009. I started casual. "Hey, do you know anything about the woman who lived at my address before me?" That question made the waitress pause mid-pour. That pause told me more than any answer. An older guy at the counter leaned in and said, "You're in the Mercer house." I said, "It's just a rental." He shook his head like I was adorable for thinking that. It was never just a rental. He told me the previous tenant, a woman named Lorraine Mercer, had lived there for years. People said she read cards. People said she could fix problems for a price. People said she did not like being disrespected. I asked what happened to her. The guy looked down at his plate and said, "She left, but I do not think she went far." That night, I did not sleep. I sat on my couch with every light on, feeling ridiculous and terrified at the same time, and that is a very specific kind of misery. Around 1:40 a.m., my phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered because I am apparently allergic to self-preservation. A woman's voice said my name, not like a question, like a fact, like she was tasting it. I said, "Who is this?" She chuckled softly, and there was something wet in the sound, like smiling with a mouthful of rainwater. She said, "You opened what was not yours." My throat tightened. "If you're talking about that pouch, I found it on my property." She said, "Nothing is yours in that house, not even your sleep." Then the line went dead. I checked the call log. Nothing, no record. Like the call had never happened. I started packing the next day. I was done. I did not care about the lease. I did not care about the deposit. I just wanted out. But when you try to leave something like that, it pulls back. I went to my bedroom to grab a box, and I saw the writing on the wall. Not big, not dramatic, just a thin smear like someone had drawn with a dirty finger. It was a symbol, a circle with a slash through it and smaller marks around the edge, like a crude compass. Under it, in shaky block letters, it said, "Return it." I stood there, my skin prickling, and I realized the house was not just being creepy, it was communicating. Return what? I searched the place like a maniac. Every cabinet, every closet, the attic access, the crawl space. I found nothing except dust and my own rising panic. Then, in the back of the hall closet behind a stack of leftover shelves, I found a small panel that did not match the rest of the wall. It was cut cleaner than the drywall around it, like someone installed it after the house was built. I pulled it free. Inside was a narrow cavity, and inside that cavity was a box wrapped in black cloth tied with twine, sealed with wax. The same burnt cinnamon smell rolled out like a breath. I did not want to open it. My entire body screamed not to, but I had reached the point where fear and anger merge into something sharp. I untied it with shaking hands and lifted the lid. There were items inside that looked like the leftovers of someone's personal ritual, but the part that made my stomach collapse was the photo, a printed photo of me, not from social media, not a selfie. It was a candid shot taken from outside my window, me in my kitchen, opening the fridge, in sweatpants, hair messy. A photo that could only exist if someone had watched me in my home. Under the photo was a small packet of paper folded tight. I opened it and saw my full name written again and again, cramped, angry, obsessive. There were also small personal things, a button from my work jacket, a receipt from my favorite gas station, and a strip of fabric that matched a shirt I had thrown away. This was not random. This was targeted. The rational part of me wanted to burn it all. The survival part of me remembered the message, "Return it." I did not know what return meant, but I knew the box had been hidden here before, and I had disturbed it by living in the house. The pouch in my yard, the hair in my pipes, the symbols, the knocking, it was escalation. So I did something I never thought I would do. I went looking for Lorraine Mercer. I asked the diner guy where she used to be seen. He gave me a long look and said, "You do not go alone." I went alone anyway, because again, my decision-making under stress is premium content for a therapist. An address led me to a shabby house on the edge of town, half swallowed by trees. Wind chimes hung from the porch, but they did not move, even though the wind was strong. The porch steps were stained dark like old spills. I walked up, and I felt the air change, not colder, thicker, like humidity without heat. Before I knocked, the front door opened. A woman stood there, late 60s maybe, white hair pulled back tight, eyes bright and unsettlingly calm. She looked at me like she'd been expecting me since birth. She said, "You brought it?" I held the box up with both hands like a peace offering. "I found it in the wall." Her smile did not reach her eyes. "That is where it belongs." I said, "Why is my stuff in it? Why is there a photo of me?" She tilted her head. "Because the house learns you, and then it keeps you." I tried to swallow and felt like my throat was full of cotton. "I want this to stop." She stepped closer, and the smell of burnt cinnamon hit me again, stronger. She said, "It stops when you give back what you took." "I did not take anything," I said, and my voice cracked. She glanced at my hands. "You opened the pouch." My stomach dropped. "That was in my yard." She nodded slowly. "And you opened it. You let your hands touch the work. That is consent." I wanted to argue, to scream that this was insane, that consent does not work like that. But the truth was, I could feel it. Ever since I opened that pouch, the house had felt closer, like it had a hook in me. "What do I do?" I asked. Her expression sharpened, like she was satisfied I had finally reached the correct level of desperation. She said, "You return the box, you close the wall, you leave, and you do not take anything from that house, not a spoon, not a photo, not dust on your shoes." I stared at her. "That's it?" She leaned in until her face was inches from mine. Her eyes were pale and too steady. "If you are smart, you will treat it like a contract you never wanted but still signed." Then she stepped back and shut the door, gently, like we had just finished a polite conversation about the weather. I drove home with my hands sweating on the steering wheel. The whole ride I had the sick feeling that someone was sitting in my back seat, silent, patient. When I arrived, my porch light was off. I had left it on. Inside, every cabinet door in my kitchen was open, every one. I returned the box to the wall cavity and forced myself not to look too long at the photo of me. I sealed it up as best I could, shoved the shelves back, and did not sleep. I packed only what I could carry quickly. I left the rest. Clothes, small appliances, things I liked. I walked away from it like it was contaminated, because in my head, it was. At sunrise, I loaded my car. As I carried the last bag, I felt something brush my shoulder from behind, like fingers grazing fabric. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. No one. But on the inside of my back door, at eye level, was a fresh smear, a new message written in that same dirty finger style. "Thank you." I moved into a motel for a week while I figured out a new place. I broke the lease. I did not fight about it. I just wanted distance. The first night away, I slept 6 hours without a dream. The second night, I slept 8. The smell faded out of my clothes. The feeling of being watched loosened. I started to believe it was over. Then 2 weeks later, I was at my new apartment, unpacking dishes I had bought to replace the ones I left behind. I opened a box from the store, brand new, factory sealed, and inside, wrapped in bubble plastic, was a simple white mug. On the bottom of the mug, written in thin black marker, was that same symbol. A circle with a slash through it and small marks, like a compass. I stood there holding it, and I did not breathe, because I understood something I had been refusing to accept. It was never only the house. It was the agreement, the attention. The moment I touched the pouch and opened it, I became part of whatever work had been set in motion. Maybe the house was a tool. Maybe the woman was the hand. Maybe I was just the next name on a list. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I did not answer. It buzzed again. And I swear to you, from inside the mug, from the hollow center like a throat, a soft tapping began. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps again.